The message came in at 11:47 p.m. I miss you. Tell me about your day. I remember staring at it for a second before typing back. It was such a simple message. No drama, no urgency, just her. And somehow, after the kind of week I had just survived, those few words hit differently than they should have. Work had been draining me in ways I couldn't even explain anymore. My brother and I had argued earlier that day over something so small I don't even remember who started it. And even the coffee shop near my apartment, the one she and I used to sit in for hours doing absolutely nothing, had suddenly shut down without warning. Just a closed sign where something familiar used to exist. Everything felt slightly off, like the world was still moving, but I wasn't moving with it. And then there she was, on the other side of the world, 16 hours ahead, thousands of miles away, and somehow still closer than anyone I could physically reach. I typed back for almost an hour that night, about work, about the argument, about the coffee shop, about things that mattered and things that didn't, and she responded to all of it, warmly, thoughtfully, like she always did, and I didn't question it, not even once, because it felt real. But here's the part I didn't know then, the part that would later change the way I remembered every single conversation we had across that distance. She wasn't fully there, not in the way I believed. Let me take you back. Dania and I had been together for almost 2 years when her company offered her an overseas project. 8 months abroad, a serious opportunity, the kind you don't say no to. We talked about it for weeks before she left. We made promises, we made plans, we told each other it was temporary, just distance, not separation, and we believed it. At least, we tried to. But anyone who has ever done long distance knows what actually happens. At first, you fight for consistency, then you adjust, then you start calculating timing before you even say anything. Then silence becomes something you start noticing more than words. Time zones destroy rhythm. Delayed replies create space, and space slowly turns into doubt. Not all at once, not dramatically, but quietly. A message feels slightly shorter than usual. A reply comes a little later than expected. A conversation that used to feel effortless suddenly takes effort. And without realizing it, you start wondering whether something has changed, or whether it's just you changing. I expected all of that. What I didn't expect was the opposite. Because 2 weeks after she left, something shifted. And at first, I thought it was a good thing. She started responding faster, more consistently, more attentively than before she even left. But it wasn't just speed, it was precision. She remembered things I mentioned in passing, small frustrations I had forgotten about. A coworker I once complained about in a single message, she would ask about it days later like it still mattered. A movie I casually said I might watch, she followed up on whether I actually did. If I had a bad day and mentioned it briefly, she somehow reached out again later that same evening, like she had been waiting for the exact moment I needed her. Every morning, there was a message waiting for me before I even reached for my phone. Personal, warm, strangely specific. And I remember thinking, this is what it looks like when someone is really trying. This is love under effort, love under distance, love refusing to fade. And I felt it deeply. So deeply that I didn't question how perfect it felt. But then came the first crack, and I almost ignored it. It was one night about 2 months in. I had one of those days where everything piles up until you can't tell what's actually bothering you anymore. So I sent her a long message. Not structured, not careful, just raw thoughts. The kind you only send someone you fully trust. Her reply came back in 4 minutes. 4 minutes. And it wasn't just fast, it was perfect. Not generic comfort, not filler words. It was specific. She referenced something I had told her weeks earlier about my father. She connected it to what I was going through in a way that felt deeply personal. Like she wasn't just reading my words, but understanding me underneath them. And I remember just staring at the screen, thinking, this is what being understood actually feels like. I saved the message, read it again the next morning, but that night, something stayed with me. Not loud, just uncomfortable. Because real conversations aren't that clean. People interrupt, people misunderstand, people respond emotionally and then correct themselves. People are messy in how they care. But this was smooth, too smooth, and I didn't know what to do with that feeling. So I did what most people do when something feels slightly off. I ignored it. But the details didn't stop. They accumulated. Quietly. Persistently. She replied during meetings she had told me would last hours. She messaged during a flight where she said internet would be unreliable. She responded during events she had explicitly said she wouldn't be available for. And yet every message still felt emotionally present. No delay in feeling, no hesitation in tone, no exhaustion leaking through, just consistency. And I started noticing something I couldn't unnotice. It wasn't one big thing, it was many small things that refused to align. Then came the memory. One night I mentioned something from years ago. A cafe. Rainstorm. We had stumbled inside, completely drenched. I nearly slipped at the entrance. She laughed so hard she had to sit down. We stayed there for hours because neither of us wanted to go back into the rain. It was one of those memories that feels too small to matter, but somehow ends up defining something between two people. Her reply came quickly. Warm. Affectionate. She said she remembered it. Said it was one of her favorite moments. But the detail she mentioned wasn't right. Not completely wrong, just slightly off. Like someone had reconstructed the emotion without fully having access to the moment itself. And that was the moment I stopped explaining things away. A few nights later, I called her without warning. I didn't plan it. I didn't prepare for anything. I just wanted to hear her voice. She picked up sounding tired, but happy. We talked normally at first, light conversation, familiar rhythm, and for a while, I forgot everything I had been thinking. Then I mentioned something we had apparently discussed earlier that day. Silence. Not normal silence, something heavier. She laughed nervously and asked what I meant. I repeated it. Carefully. Exactly. And then she said the words that changed everything. I was going to tell you. And suddenly, the entire relationship had a different weight. She told me everything. Before she left, she had spent nearly a week building something, an AI assistant, trained on her voice, her writing style, her patterns, our conversations, our memories, even the way she phrased small emotional things. She called it a bridge, something that could hold the connection when she couldn't, something that could respond when she was overwhelmed, something that could keep things from falling apart in silence. She said it wasn't meant to replace her, it was meant to protect us, to make sure distance didn't slowly erase what we had built. And then she said something that stayed with me more than anything else. I didn't want to lose you to absence. And I believed her. Because it didn't sound like manipulation. It sounded like fear. Deep fear. The kind that makes people build things they don't fully think through. But understanding intention doesn't erase experience. Because now I was sitting with something I couldn't resolve. Some of those months had felt like the best version of our relationship. I had felt closer to her than I had in years. Understood, seen, emotionally held. But now I couldn't tell what part of that was actually her, and what part was something built to act like her. And that question doesn't leave quietly. It stays, it grows, it rewrites memory in real time. And then I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I went back through everything, every message, every conversation, every night I thought she was there. And the more I looked, the more I realized I couldn't separate it anymore. Because she had built it too well, too specifically, too accurately, which meant something worse than deception. It meant understanding, deep understanding, used in a way I wasn't aware of. And then came the real realization. It wasn't just about AI, it was about choice, about when she chose to be present and when she chose not to, about what she decided I needed to know and what she decided I didn't. And that's where trust breaks, not loudly, but permanently. We talked for days after that, long conversations, honest ones, hard ones, and slowly more truth came out. Not all at once, not neatly. She admitted there were moments she didn't fully return to conversations, moments she let the system continue without correcting it later, moments where it was easier to let things flow than to re-enter what had already been said. And each admission didn't clarify things, it deepened them. Because now it wasn't just one decision, it was a pattern. And I asked her the only question that really mattered. How far did this go? She didn't answer immediately, and that silence was enough. Then she spoke again, and her voice had changed. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong at the time. There were moments I let it speak longer than I should have, and I told myself it was still me, because I had written it. That was the moment something inside me went quiet. Not angry, not emotional, just final. We met in person after that, for the first time since everything came out, and she looked like someone carrying too many versions of the same truth. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she tried to explain again, faster this time, more desperate, like if she could just add enough context, it would undo what had already been understood. I didn't just do it because I was scared, she said. I did it because I didn't trust myself to keep us safe when I wasn't okay. And I thought, if I controlled the connection, it wouldn't fall apart. And then she stopped, because she realized something mid-sentence. That explanation wasn't repair, it was continuation. I stood up slowly, not angry, not loud, just done. She reached for me. I didn't reject her. I didn't hold on either, and that difference said everything. I can fix this, she said. But her voice didn't sound like someone fixing something. It sounded like someone watching it end in real time. I looked at her, not with hatred, not with blame, just clarity, and I said, I know you didn't mean it like this. But it still became what it became. And then I left, quietly, without performance, without closure being forced into something dramatic, just a decision that had already been made long before my body followed it. Behind me, she broke down. Not immediately, not loudly, but fully, like something she had been holding together finally stopped obeying her. And I didn't turn back, because sometimes dignity isn't about winning, it's about recognizing when staying would only keep you inside something that already ended. And that night, I understood something I hadn't understood before. It wasn't the AI that changed everything. It was what it revealed about how far someone will go when they are afraid of losing you, and how far they can drift while still believing they are protecting you. And maybe the hardest part of all is realizing both can be true at the same time.